I was working at the post office, and this woman that I worked with every day, she looks at me one day. She looks at me and she's like, I had just had a customer at my line, and she looks at me and she's like, you know, some of the way you do things just doesn't make any sense to me. I don't understand. Like, people ask questions and you just don't answer them, or you you just don't do things like I've ever seen anybody do things. And I've been working at the post office now for like 27 or 8 years. And I started thinking to myself, this was years ago. I started thinking to myself, I've had this kind of comment to me my entire life. My entire life, I've had people tell me stuff like this, and I don't even notice it. So I wanted to talk about it. And the title of this video basically is Trying to Be Normal When You Know You're Not. I got it written right there. And it's been rough, right? So I've been reflecting on this since the beginning of the year. It snowed outside. There's ice everywhere. I got nothing really else to do other than go do DoorDash and think about life, right? So reflecting and move around in a squeaky chair that I've got. So I started really thinking about this because as at an early age, I had my father, who is the nicest person in the world, but he's like a drill sergeant. Anytime that you're sitting around just doing nothing, like, what are you doing, man? You could be doing something right now. I'm like, I don't really want to. And it's kind of led to me overexerting myself my entire life. I started working when I was 13, trying to fit in with the crowd, trying to, I wanted, my parents weren't into buying stuff, like a lot, like clothes and shit. Like, if you had the clothes that you needed to, they would just, they were good enough with that. They weren't going to go buy the newest and latest and greatest. So I started working when I was like 13. I was already, actually, I think I know I was taller than I am now because of the surgery and everything. So I was a big guy. I was like 6 foot something. I think I was already in the 200s. When I was 13. And so I got my worker's permit to work early, and I started working, and I started buying like shoes like crazy. I was making a good amount of money. And I think that actually kind of set me up for failure, to be honest with you, because I've been working now for over 30 years. Well, this year, actually April of this year will be 30 years, sorry, that I started working. And it's just created this world that I've tried to live in. I never really developed as a kid or as a teenager, or did the stuff that normal teenagers do, because not only did I go start working when I was 13, I also tested out of chemistry. I tested out of different things. And because I did this when I was in high school, they put me in this program where I was going to be most of my time at community college and part of my time at high school, so that I would essentially graduate with an associate's degree and a high school diploma all at the same time. So not only did I pull myself away from being in high school, I also pulled myself away from just having a normal life, because I had to be at work at like 4 o'clock in the morning on the weekends, or earlier, and I worked after school. I did all this stuff that really, you wouldn't be doing until you're in your mid 20s or later. And it kind of developed into somebody who already had like issues with trying to, I got to comments like that lady made to me since I was in elementary school. People are always like, man, you're so strange. You're so strange. And I never really wanted to change any of it. But as you get older, it's like, wow, it's really hard to navigate in this planet the way I am. Like, it's just, I wouldn't call myself like a lost soul. I see how ridiculous all this stuff is. We're the only people, or the only beings on this planet to pay to live here. None of it just doesn't make any sense to me. So I have a really hard time getting involved with it. Or when I'm in relationships with people who function kind of on a normal cognitive level, I don't always do well in that situation. I usually disappear. I just kind of go away. It's just, the more I'm thinking about this, and I was talking last night about it with a couple of people actually, about just the idea of normal. What does that actually look like? And really, should you shoehorn yourself into this idea of being normal? Because then you start having these thoughts. Like for me, for example, I don't know if you've seen the movie The Aviator with Howard Hughes. At the end of the movie, he was like, wave of the future, wave of the future. You get stuck in that, or he would lock himself into a room and not come out of it. And that kind of happens to me all the time, like with everything. Like I was supposed to take a trip out to New York City last week. This one still hurts. And whenever I'm supposed to take a trip, my brain the night before just runs through like everything. Like a mountain might fall out of the sky and destroy your car. Your car might blow up. You might levitate in your car. Just, like what could happen here, or like, I don't know, like a deer might fly across the planet and just land in your windshield. I mean, I used to have this shit happen to me before a bike ride. Like I wouldn't even be able to do the bike ride. It was crazy to me, some of the stuff that happens in my mind. And I'm like, normal people, I don't think go through this. Like I would tell people about this and they're like, whoa, what is wrong with you? Like, I mean, just go for a bike ride. So I couldn't even plan my bike rides back in 2016 when I was riding a lot. I couldn't even plan it. I'd have to know. I would have to know that I was going for a bike ride 3 minutes before I was going for a bike ride, because otherwise the entire day I would run through my head about all the crazy stuff that could possibly happen to me while I'm riding my bike. Anything. It doesn't matter what it is. Or if like I was going to take a test back in the day, like I struggled when I knew I was about to take a test, because I would think about all the things that could possibly happen, or, and just different variations of that, or talking to people. And I'm to the point where I've had so many jobs now. I've had so many just different experiences with all this, that I think that people who live in this world of having their mind go crazy, you've got a couple options. You can live medicated the rest of your life, and most of those medications make you fat and just abnormally happy and not real functional at all. You don't really fit in either. Or you could just kind of go your own way and make your own path. And that's what I've been doing. But when you do that, you're going to have the possibility of being homeless or whatever it might be. I've for the last, I think it's 4 years now. Yeah, it's 4 years since I had my accident at the post office and had to have my ankle replaced, and they won't let me back. It's been 4 years since this happened, and I've definitely kept a roof over my head even when I was here by myself. So it is definitely possible. But if you're watching this video, and if you've made it this far, if you've had this, like, I'm going to make more videos about this because it's the morning and I'm not very good in the morning. So I probably shouldn't have made it now, but I just really wanted to get this out. Like, that's another thing, like the random thoughts that come into your head or whatever, but like the sleep. Like, I don't want to fully say that I'm on the autistic spectrum until I get tested, which is coming up. But I've taken 2 tests made by doctors, and I'm definitely like well within. The sleep thing, it's unreal. So people ask me why, I have this issue, or, they claim that you're not eating enough. That's another thing, like trying to stick with diets or trying to stick with any of this kind of stuff is so impossible. You can't really commit to anything. When you just have when you have all this going on, like committing to stuff is very hard. So if you actually commit to someone or something, they should know just how special that they are to somebody that has this. It's crazy, because you're always thinking like, is this really the right thing to do? Is this really the right thing to do? Oh, maybe I shouldn't do this. Maybe I shouldn't do this. You overthink everything. Everything's an overthought, and you can't get anything done when you're overthinking about everything. You start thinking about like, well, what could happen 10 years down the road? You might not even make it 10 years down the road. You might not even be alive 10 minutes from now, but you're thinking about 10 years from now and how your neighbor's doing burnouts in his own driveway for whatever reason right now. You're seeing it, so I'll be thinking about that for however long. I don't know why he's doing it. It makes no sense, but he is. And, it's just, so this will roll through my head. Or when I was in school, I went to Catholic school, and at that time, the separation of church and state was happening, and all the public funded stuff was being put outside, and they would be put into these trailers because it wasn't allowed to be in the building. And I would just sit there and watch the trailers, but still get straight A's. Like, how do you explain that? I wasn't paying attention at all. I was hearing this stuff, and I would still get, straight A's. Whatever grade I really wanted to get. Like, if I wanted an A, I would get an A. If I didn't want an A, I wouldn't. I just didn't care. I don't even know where I was now. The guy doing the burnouts in the driveway next door, threw me off here. But yeah, it's just, if you have this going on, if you've watched this video and you can see kind of yourself in this, I just don't think that we are able to function in a normal work setting. I can remember being at the post office and everybody's like, my God, I've never seen a more miserable person working at the post office. I said, you have no idea what goes on in this head of mine. At that time, because my ankle wasn't fixed, I was always in pain, so much pain. So that kind of puts you, I mean, I still am. You see me moving around in my chair and everything while I'm making this video. But I was always in pain. And so that was the misery. And I'm always in my head thinking, why am I here? Why am I doing this? Who am I trying to please with this job? And I started thinking, the only reason I'm here, I think, is to please my parents, because they wanted me to do something like this. So you just cannot live for other people's expectations of you. Is what 11 minutes in is what I'm trying to say, but I'm too scatterbrained to actually make it there. You cannot live for other people's expectations of you. You can't. It's not a possibility. Otherwise, you will lose your mind. You know, when I started really writing down, I'm just going to show the back of this because I don't want people reading this psychopath stuff that comes out. But when I was taking notes about what it is that bothers me, I really realized that despite the fact that I don't really listen to other people's opinions, I've lived my life based on other people's opinions a lot in the money-making life of mine, because I figured they must know better than I do. Meanwhile, the people that I've listened to, other than one, I wouldn't want their lifestyle at all. Like, I have no interest in working 12 hours a day or whatever it is that these people do. They might like it. I don't know. They claim they do. I don't believe it. So, yeah. If you are always, like, I've had, like 53 or 4 jobs or something like that. Like, I remember I was doing deliveries on the other side of town for Christmas, and I was picking up from this one Panera Bread, and I remember I actually worked at that Panera Bread for 45 minutes. I was at the grand opening of that Panera Bread way back in the day, back in the 2002 or something like that. And I went into the job, and I didn't have a hat on. And they start yelling at me about not having a hat. I said, "Did you give me a hat?" I said, "A Panera hat?" They're like, "No." I'm like, "Oh, okay. So I'm supposed to be wearing a hat that you didn't give me." It's making a lot of sense here. And so they finally wrangle up a hat for me that looked used. So I'm like, "I'm not putting this on. It's not happening." They're like, "You got to." I said, "I don't think so." And they're like, "And we're going to need you to go home and shave." I said, "All right." I said, "I've been here for 45 minutes for you guys to find a hat. And now you're telling me that I got to shave." I said, "Have you told these women that they got to shave their mustaches?" And the woman who was telling me this was like so offended. And they're like, "Well, no." I said, "Oh, okay." I said, "I tell you what, I'm going to go home. I'm not going to shave, and I'm just going to stay there. But thanks for everything. It's been fun." And, you know, I had so many things like that in my life. It's just, anyway. If you just don't feel like you fit into normal, maybe chances are you're not. And maybe chances are you're not supposed to fit into the mold that people are trying to make for you. If you want to do it, fine. It is easier. It really is. But for those of us who just cannot do it, maybe you're the normal one and everybody else is the sheep. I don't know. But you're going to have to make your own way. And it might be ugly in the beginning. It might be ugly for years. But when you get to the other end of it, I'd imagine it's amazing. I've seen glimpses. Anyways, comments, questions down below. Like, subscribe, and I'll talk to you in the next